Hello, my little friends. Welcome to the Littlestory channel. I'm Bella. Have fun and learn with today's story. Remember, every story has something special to teach you. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you won't miss the new stories. Shall we begin? It was a quiet afternoon in the forest when Amelia, the hardest working little ant in the colony, started her day as she always did, carrying leaves to the anthill. Ever since she was young, Amelia had been known for her determination and dedication. She knew that every leaf she carried was essential to keeping the colony fed and safe. However, that day, something different happened. While Amelia was carrying a leaf 3 times her size, the sky suddenly began to darken. Heavy clouds covered the sun, and the gentle breeze transformed into a fierce storm. The other ants ran back to the anthill, but Amelia, determined, decided to keep going. Just one more leaf, she thought. I can do it. But what she didn't know was that a nearby tree was about to fall. The wind howled, leaves flew through the air, and suddenly, crack! A massive branch fell right next to Amelia, shaking the ground. The little ant was thrown far by the impact, and everything around her became blurry. She could barely move, her legs trembled, and her vision started to fade. Is this the end of Amelia? The little ant wondered in her last moments of consciousness. High above, a butterfly fluttering over the forest saw everything. She knew that if she didn't act quickly, Amelia wouldn't survive. But being a delicate butterfly, what could she possibly do? Desperate, the butterfly flew in circles, trying to think of a solution. Will she be able to save Amelia in time? And how will the other ants react when they realize she hasn't returned to the anthill? Meanwhile, back at the anthill, the other ants began to notice Amelia's absence. Murmurs spread among them. Amelia hasn't returned? Where is she? Could something have happened? The colony leader, the wise ant, sensed that something was wrong. He knew that Amelia was never late. Without wasting time, he summoned the fastest and bravest ants for a search party. We must find Amelia before it's too late, he said urgently. But where could she be? The forest was vast and dangerous, especially with the storm brewing. Would the ants find her before the worst happened? And the butterfly, with her vantage point, would she find a way to save little Amelia? Time passed, and it seemed like the clock was ticking against Amelia. What will happen next? Will our little heroine have the strength to survive? Or does a tragic fate await her? The story isn't over yet. What's coming next? Only the next part can reveal that. The storm grew more violent by the minute. Trees bent in the wind, leaves swirled through the air, and the sound of thunder made the whole forest feel alive. Amelia, trapped under the heavy branch, could barely open her eyes. Her breathing was weak, and her tiny movements weren't enough to free her. She felt her energy slipping away, but something deep inside, an invisible force, told her not to give up. High above, the butterfly, still restless, continued her search for help. She knew she couldn't lift the branch on her own. Then, from afar, she spotted a strong, experienced beetle known for his strength. He was Zoltan, an old friend of the forest, respected by all insects for his wisdom and power. The butterfly flew swiftly towards him, her wings trembling in the wind, as she cried out, "Zoltan, please! Amelia is in danger, we need your help." The beetle, with his sharp eyes and serious expression, listened intently. Amelia, the little ant? The tireless worker? What happened? The butterfly, without wasting time, explained everything. With a determined gleam in his eyes, Zoltan set off immediately. "I'll do what I can. But with this storm, it'll be a race against time." Meanwhile, at the anthill, the wise ant had already organized a search team. Fast and agile ants, with keen senses, set out in all directions, hoping to find some trace of Amelia. The wind and rain made the search difficult, and every second felt crucial. Despite their small size, the ants had a strong sense of unity and knew they couldn't leave one of their own behind. But, would they get there in time? Zoltan and the butterfly were getting closer. The sound of the storm drowned out their steps, but the butterfly knew exactly where Amelia was. When they finally reached the spot, Zoltan stopped, seeing the gigantic branch on top of the fragile little ant. "Is she alive?" he asked, looking worriedly at the butterfly, who gave a desperate nod. Zoltan, using all his strength, began pushing the branch. His muscles trembled, and the weight seemed unbearable. Will he be able to do it? The butterfly's heart raced, and time seemed to stand still for a moment. Rain poured down Zoltan's body, his legs dug into the muddy ground, but he didn't give up. Amelia still hadn't moved, and the situation looked increasingly dire. In the midst of the struggle, one of the search party ants spotted the scene from afar. "There! I see something! Quick, follow me!" The ants rushed, their tiny legs darting through the mud and fallen branches. They arrived just as Zoltan, with one final monumental effort, managed to move the branch. Amelia's body was free, but now what? Was she all right? The ants ran to her. Their hearts pounded, and the tension was palpable. The butterfly gently landed on Amelia's body, trying to feel any sign of life. Will she wake up? Did we arrive too late? The silence between them was deafening, interrupted only by distant thunder. Amelia, so strong and courageous, now lay still. Zoltan, breathing heavily, watched everything in silence, waiting for the little ant to show some sign of recovery. The ants gathered around her, holding each other's legs, hoping that their companion would have the strength to fight one more time. Suddenly, a small movement. Amelia's antenna twitched slightly, almost imperceptibly, but enough for everyone around to hold their breath. Is this a sign that she'll recover? Hope was rekindled, but no one knew for sure what would come next. Would Amelia have the strength to stand? Or had the weight of the branch and the storm caused irreparable harm? Amelia's story isn't over yet. What will happen next? Amelia's tiny legs trembled slightly, and her antennae, moving slowly, indicated that she was, somehow, still fighting. The butterfly, relieved to see this faint sign of life, whispered softly, "She's alive, but will she have the strength to recover?" The ants around her watched with anxious eyes. The wise ant, who had finally arrived at the scene, observed carefully. He knew that, in this moment, it was crucial to stay calm, but the weight of anxiety hung in the air. "Amelia, you must hold on," he thought, as her companions formed a circle around their injured friend, as if trying to share their strength with her. Zoltan, still panting, approached Amelia. He had done everything he could to remove the branch, but he knew the true battle was just beginning. "She needs urgent care," the beetle said gravely. "What should we do now? How can we save her?" The wise ant, with all his wisdom, knew there was only one solution to this situation. Deep within the forest, far away, lived an old ladybug named Madame Ruby. It was said that her healing abilities were legendary, and that she had knowledge that could help even the weakest recover from nearly fatal injuries. But the path to Madame Ruby was long and dangerous, especially with the storm still raging. Would there be enough time? "We need to find Madame Ruby," the wise ant said, breaking the silence. "She's the only one who can help Amelia now." But who would dare to take on this journey in the midst of the storm? The ants looked at each other, feeling the weight of the decision. Time was running against them, and the risk was immense. But before anyone could volunteer, a small, weak voice emerged. It was Amelia. With a strength no one expected, she whispered, "I will survive." What did she mean by that? Did Amelia believe she could make it on her own? Or was she preparing for something greater, even in her critical state? The wise ant gently held Amelia's little paw. "You're strong, little one," he said tenderly. "But we can't take any chances. You need Madame Ruby." He looked at the others and, with resolve, said, "I will go." The group was shocked. The wise ant was the leader, the oldest and most experienced, but also the most precious to the colony. "But, Master, what if something happens to you?" "The colony needs you," cried a worried ant. The wise ant just smiled, his tired eyes filled with determination. "The colony will survive. But now, Amelia needs me. Every life matters." And so, under the heavy rain, the wise ants set off in search of Madame Ruby, accompanied by Zoltan, who had volunteered to help him. The butterfly, still concerned, stayed by Amelia's side, trying to shield her from the cold with her wings. Meanwhile, the storm showed no signs of easing. The wind howled even louder, the trees continued to sway furiously, and darkness seemed to envelop the forest. Would the wise ant and Zoltan be able to find Madame Ruby in time? And Amelia, would she be able to hold on until they returned? The answers to these questions remain hidden in the depths of the forest. The fate of Amelia and all those around her depends on forces no one can predict. What does the future hold for our little heroine? It was a quiet morning in the house of the three kitten siblings, Mimi, the oldest and most curious, Lily, the playful and clever one, and Snowball, the youngest and most affectionate. They were used to playing together around the house, chasing after toys and hiding in their favorite corners. But that day, something strange happened. While Mimi and Lily were playing with a colorful ball, they noticed that Snowball wasn't around. The little white kitten had disappeared. "Mimi, have you seen Snowball?" Lily asked, her voice filled with concern. Mimi looked around and realized their little brother was truly missing. "He was just here. Maybe he's napping somewhere," Mimi suggested, trying to hide the growing fear in his heart. The two kittens began searching the house. First, they ran to the bedroom, where Snowball often curled up for naps on the bed. Nothing. Then they checked the living room, peeking under the couch, but he wasn't there either. Time was ticking by, and the absence of Snowball was starting to scare them more and more. "What if he's stuck somewhere?" Lily said, her eyes glistening with worry. "We need to find him, fast." The two siblings decided to split up and search every possible spot Snowball could have wandered into. Mimi went to the kitchen, while Lily headed down to the basement, a dark place that always gave them an uneasy feeling. As Mimi entered the kitchen, he started sniffing around. "Snowball! Where are you?" he called out, but there was no response. He checked under the table, behind the chairs, and even jumped up onto the counter to see if Snowball had somehow climbed onto the shelves. But there was no sign of their brother. Meanwhile, Lily slowly made her way down the stairs into the basement, her heart pounding faster. It was dark and filled with old boxes, but she knew she had to be brave. Could Snowball have wandered down here? She wondered as her eyes tried to adjust to the shadows. "Snowball, are you there?" she called out, her voice echoing off the cold walls. But all she heard in return was silence. Could Snowball be lost somewhere deeper in the house? Or worse, could he be hurt? Back in the living room, Mimi and Lily met again. Both were tired, and more worried than ever. They sat down side by side. "Where could he be, Mimi?" "We've looked everywhere," Lily said, her voice trembling. Mimi, who always tried to be the strong older brother, looked at Lily with a mix of fear and determination. "We can't give up. We haven't checked the attic yet, but it's so high and spooky." "Could Snowball have gone up there?" he asked, mostly to himself. The two kittens looked up at the ceiling, where the attic door sat ominously above them. The attic was a place they usually avoided, a dark and cluttered space full of forgotten things. But with Snowball missing, they had no other choice. "Come on, Lily. Let's go check the attic. He might be there, and we have to be brave." They slowly climbed the stairs, their hearts pounding faster with each step. When they reached the attic door, Mimi pushed it open with his paw, the creak of the hinges echoing through the house. The attic was even darker than they imagined, with cobwebs in the corners and old boxes scattered everywhere. "Do you think he's really up here?" Lily whispered, her eyes scanning the dim room. Mimi took a deep breath. "We have to find out, Lily. Let's search together." And so, the two kittens began to walk through the attic, their little hearts filled with fear but also hope. Everything was silent except for the soft patting of their paws on the dusty floor. But suddenly, something broke the silence, a faint meow, barely audible. "Did you hear that?" Lily asked, her eyes wide. "Yes, it was him," Mimi replied, his heart racing. "Snowball. We're here," he called out, his voice full of hope. But where was he hiding? Was he hurt? Or was he just too scared to come out? The two siblings' adventure was far from over, and the search for their little brother was only growing more intense. What will they find in the attic? And is Snowball okay? The story doesn't end here, and what comes next is something only the next chapter will reveal. Mimi and Lily's hearts raced as they followed the faint sound of Snowball's meows. The attic felt even bigger now, with every shadow seeming to stretch endlessly into the darkness. They moved carefully, stepping over old furniture and dusty boxes, their ears pricked up, trying to catch any hint of where their little brother might be. "Snowball, where are you?" Mimi called again, louder this time. Another faint meow echoed back. "He's close," Lily whispered, her voice filled with a mix of relief and worry. But just as they started moving toward the sound, a loud thud came from the far corner of the attic. Both kittens froze, their eyes wide. "What was that?" Lily gasped, her tail puffing up in fear. "I don't know, but we have to be brave. Snowball is counting on us," Mimi said, though even he felt a shiver run down his spine. Step by step, they crept closer to the far end of the attic, where the shadows seemed thicker and the air colder. As they approached an old chest, the meows became clearer. "He's in there!" Lily exclaimed, her voice trembling with excitement. But the chest was closed tight, and it seemed too heavy for the two kittens to open. How did Snowball get inside? Mimi wondered, his mind racing with questions. Is he trapped? Is he hurt? Determined, Mimi tried pushing the chest with all his might, but it barely budged. Lily joined in, her small paws pushing against the dusty wood. "Come on, Snowball, we're almost there," she murmured, as if her words could give them strength. Just as they were about to give up, the chest creaked open slightly. From inside, a soft, white paw poked out. "Snowball," both kittens shouted in unison, their hearts leaping with joy. But then, something strange happened. The attic light flickered, casting eerie shadows across the room, and the chest slammed shut again. "What's happening?" Lily whispered, her voice shaking. "Stay calm," Mimi said, though his heart pounded in his chest. "We'll get him out. We just need to find a way." But how? The attic seemed to have a mind of its own, and with every second that passed, the situation felt more mysterious. Was there something in the attic they didn't know about? Could there be a reason Snowball was stuck in that chest? As the two kittens stood there, unsure of what to do next, another sound filled the room, a deep, creaking noise, like something shifting in the shadows. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with fear but also determination. Snowball was still inside, and they couldn't leave him. "What do we do now?" Lily asked, her voice barely a whisper. "We keep going," Mimi said, his voice steady. "We're not leaving without him." But what would they find next? And could they save Snowball before it was too late? The mystery of the attic was far from solved, and the adventure of the three siblings was only just beginning. With a final burst of determination, Mimi and Lily pushed against the heavy chest once more. This time, something magical happened. The chest creaked open fully, revealing their tiny brother, Snowball, nestled inside but unharmed. His wide blue eyes blinked up at his siblings, filled with relief. "Snowball!" Lily cried, wrapping her paws around him, pulling him close. Mimi joined in, purring as loud as ever, feeling the weight of their fear and worry melt away. Snowball, though a little shaken, was happy to be back in the arms of his siblings. "How did you get stuck in there?" Mimi asked, still curious. "I was exploring," Snowball explained, and the chest lid just fell shut. "I couldn't get out." Lily nuzzled him. "We were so scared. But we didn't give up, and neither did you." Together, the three kittens made their way back down from the attic, feeling the warmth of the sun shining through the windows as they returned to the familiar coziness of their home. Their adventure had been frightening, but it had brought them even closer together, showing them just how strong they were as a family. From this story, we can learn the importance of perseverance, teamwork, and courage. When things seem scary or uncertain, having the support of those who love you can make all the difference. Mimi and Lily never gave up on finding their brother, and Snowball didn't stop calling for help. It's a reminder that, no matter how difficult a situation may seem, facing it with determination and togetherness can lead to a happy ending. A quiet morning in the forest, Toby, a small and curious porcupine, was setting out on his usual routine when something unusual caught his attention. Near his burrow, nestled among some dry leaves, lay a lone egg, completely out of place, with no chicken or nest nearby. Toby stopped, intrigued. What could this be, he wondered, tilting his head and examining every detail of the egg. He had never seen anything like it up close. After a moment, he realized the egg looked as though it needed care, so, without much thought, he decided he would be its guardian. But looking after an egg in the forest was no simple task. Toby quickly noticed that everything around seemed to be working against the little egg. When the first dark cloud appeared in the sky, he hurried to cover it with leaves and used his spiky body to form a shield, protecting it from wind and rain. And so his mission began. With each passing day, Toby grew more attached to the egg, wondering what might be inside. Could there be a little creature in there? What will it look like? He pondered. One day, a strong gust of wind swept through the forest and nearly toppled him along with the egg. On another night, he heard the heavy steps of a raccoon nearby. Silently, Toby curled himself around the egg, keeping his spines sharp to fend off any predator. Still, Toby knew his challenges were only beginning. As time went by, he felt the egg growing warmer. Does this mean it will hatch soon? He wondered. Once, he had to climb up a tall branch to escape a quick flood, carefully balancing the egg. Toby was exhausted, but also excited. After all, protecting this tiny egg had become his grand mission. But now, yet another dark night was about to fall over the forest, and Toby began to feel something different from his new friend. Sitting still, his eyes wide with anticipation, he didn't know what to expect. Could it be tonight? Will I finally find out what's inside? The mystery of the egg was greater than he could have ever imagined, and he knew that whatever awaited him, it would change his life forever. And so, Toby's adventure with his special egg continued, filled with mystery and excitement. What will Toby discover at the end of his journey? Will he be able to protect the egg until the very end? Toby stayed awake all night, watching over the egg. At every sound of a breaking twig or rustling leaves, he spun around quickly, his spines on high alert. The rain had started again, and Toby carefully nudged the egg into a small cave he had found, sheltering it from the cold and water. By morning, the sun rose, bringing a brief calm, but Toby noticed something different about the egg. It seemed to be trembling slightly. The little porcupine, both curious and concerned, watched it even more closely. Could it be ready to hatch? Is the egg going to break? He thought, feeling both nervous and excited. But there was little time to ponder. Just then, a group of curious birds began to circle the area. They looked at the egg with interest, and noticing Toby was alone, started inching closer. Toby, heart pounding, puffed up his spiky body and stared down the birds with determination. "You're not touching this egg," he thought fiercely. He knew he had to get creative to protect it. Toby gathered thick leaves and branches, building a makeshift nest around the egg, trying to keep it as safe as possible. But as he did, a new thought crept into his mind. Does whatever's inside the egg want to come out and see the world? Is it comfortable here with me? These questions swirled in Toby's head, but he kept his focus. The most important thing was to ensure his mysterious friend's safety. Days passed, and Toby grew more attached to the egg, facing the forest's challenges with bravery and perseverance. Yet, one question lingered in his mind. Is someone out there looking for this egg? Is there someone waiting for it to return? Then, on a particularly calm morning, Toby heard a soft crack. The sound made his heart race. He looked at the egg with wide eyes. Is it time? To his surprise, a small crack appeared right in the center of the shell. Toby moved closer, trying to imagine what was about to happen. And so, the little porcupine kept watch, anxious and excited, as the egg began to crack slowly. What could be hidden inside? And how would Toby's first meeting with his mysterious friend unfold? Toby's story is far from over, and his new friend still holds many secrets. What will happen next? Toby waited with bated breath as the cracks in the egg grew larger, tiny pieces of the shell falling away bit by bit. Every sound in the forest faded as he focused completely on the mysterious friend about to emerge. His heart thumped loudly, his spines quivering in anticipation. Finally, after what felt like hours, a tiny, wet beak peeked through the largest crack. Toby's eyes widened, and he held back a gasp. "It's alive," he thought, both thrilled and relieved. The tiny creature pushed, wriggling free from its shell until finally, with one final effort, a small, fluffy chick tumbled out. Toby couldn't believe his eyes. The little chick looked up at him, blinking in the sunlight, its eyes full of trust. Toby was speechless. After all the nights of guarding, the battles with the weather, the predators he'd deterred, this tiny, fragile creature was here at last, safe in his care. The little chick chirped softly, almost as if saying, "Thank you," and Toby, overwhelmed with a protective warmth, knew he had done the right thing. But as he watched the chick wobble on unsteady legs, he wondered, what now? How do I care for something this delicate? And, will someone come looking for it? The forest seemed both safer and scarier now that he had someone to look after. As night began to fall, Toby gathered leaves to keep the chick warm and snuggled close, keeping an eye on the forest around them. Yet questions filled his mind. How will the chick find its way in this big forest? What if something dangerous is still out there? And as the shadows of the forest grew longer, Toby knew that their journey had only just begun. He glanced at the chick, who nestled closer to him, and whispered, "Don't worry. Whatever comes our way, I'll protect you." What new adventures awaited Toby and his newfound friend? Would they find their way through the forest safely, or would more mysteries unfold along their path? Only time would tell. After days of devoted care, Toby knew it was time for his new friend to find its real family. The little chick had grown stronger under his protection, and Toby felt both a sense of pride and a pang of sadness at the thought of saying goodbye. One bright morning, as the forest bathed in the warm sunlight, Toby led the chick on a journey through the forest to a place he had seen birds gathering before. With each step, Toby's heart swelled with a mixture of excitement and sorrow, knowing he was about to part with the friend he had protected so fiercely. As they neared a small clearing, they heard a soft call from a distance, a familiar sound that made the little chick perk up and chirp in excitement. The chick's mother, a graceful hen, came rushing from behind some bushes, spreading her wings wide in relief and joy as she recognized her lost baby. The chick hopped toward her, chirping happily, as Toby looked on, feeling both proud and tearful. Toby watched as the mother hen tenderly wrapped her wing around her little one, and the chick turned to Toby one last time, giving him a grateful chirp. Toby gave a warm nod, knowing his friend would be safe and loved. Slowly, Toby turned to leave, feeling a bittersweet ache in his heart. He had given all he could to protect the little egg, and now it was time for him to return to his own home, carrying the beautiful memories of this adventure in his heart. As Toby walked back through the forest, he reflected on the journey that had transformed him. He hadn't expected to feel so connected to the chick or to find himself filled with such joy and love for another creature. He realized that, though small and covered in quills, he had been able to make a huge difference by simply choosing to care. Lessons we can learn from Toby's story. Empathy and kindness go beyond differences. Toby, a porcupine, chose to care for an egg he knew little about. This reminds us that kindness knows no boundaries. We can always choose to help, regardless of how different someone might seem. Perseverance and courage in the face of adversity. Toby's journey wasn't easy. He faced dangers from predators, harsh weather, and exhaustion. Yet, his determination to protect the egg shows the strength we can find when we commit to helping others, especially in tough situations. Letting go for the greater good. Despite his deep connection to the chick, Toby realized that true friendship sometimes means stepping back and allowing others to go where they truly belong. He understood that love sometimes requires letting go. The power of friendship and caring. Toby's story reminds us that caring for someone or something deeply changes us. His journey of care and friendship with the little chick helped him grow into a more compassionate, courageous version of himself. In the end, Toby's journey taught him, and teaches us, that even the smallest acts of kindness can have a profound impact. The bonds we build and the sacrifices we make for others enrich our lives, making us stronger and more connected to the world around us. Toby's tale of courage, friendship, and selflessness is a reminder that we all have the capacity to be heroes in someone's life. Once upon a time, there was a young girl named Sophia. She was clever and curious, but she had one little problem: she didn't like doing her homework. But Sophia had an idea. She had a furry best friend, her dog Billy, and decided to use him as an excuse. The first time Sophia went to school without her homework, she told her teacher, "My dog Billy ate my homework." Her teacher chuckled, amused by the classic excuse, and let it slide just this once. After all, who hadn't heard that funny line before? But what do you think will happen next? Will the teacher believe this story every time? Days passed, and Sophia continued using the same excuse whenever she didn't do her homework. Each time, she told her teacher that Billy had chewed it up or buried it in the yard. Eventually, though, her teacher started to become suspicious. She decided it was time to call Sophia's parents and discuss the problem. When Sophia heard about the meeting, her stomach twisted into knots. She hadn't thought her little excuse could turn into such a big issue. Now what? Should she confess the truth to her parents? What do you think Sophia will do? Do you think she'll tell the truth? The day of the meeting arrived, and Sophia's parents sat down with the teacher. The teacher explained that Sophia hadn't been turning in her homework for quite some time and kept blaming it on Billy. Sophia's parents listened, surprised and a bit disappointed to hear about their daughter's behavior. They realized they had to do something to teach Sophia the importance of honesty. When they got home, her parents called Sophia for a serious talk and said, "Sophia, if Billy is causing so many problems, maybe he should go live somewhere else, like on a farm, where he can run free and not eat homework anymore." Sophia's face went pale. Her eyes filled with tears, and her heart sank. She had never thought her little lie could lead to this. Now, she was about to lose her best friend. But, "I don't want Billy to go away," she stammered, her voice trembling with panic. Her parents looked at her, waiting for her to explain, but Sophia was speechless. She realized that her lie had gone too far and that if she wanted to keep Billy, she'd have to make some big changes. So, what do you think will happen now? Will Sophia confess? Will Billy really go to live on a farm? The story doesn't end here. But maybe this is just the beginning of Sophia's journey to learning an important lesson and finding a way to keep her friend by her side. Sophia's heart pounded as she looked at her parents. She couldn't believe that her little lie had grown into such a huge problem. Losing Billy? Her best friend? The thought of him being sent away to a farm, away from her, made her feel like her world was falling apart. As her parents watched her struggle to find the words, her mom said gently, "Sophia, we don't want to do this, but we don't know what else to do. You've been telling everyone that Billy eats your homework, and it's not fair to him or to your teachers." Sophia's chest felt tight, and she started to cry, the kind of deep, quiet sobbing that comes when you realize you've really messed up. She reached for Billy, who was sitting by her side, wagging his tail and looking up at her with those big, trusting eyes. How could she have blamed him for her mistakes? Trembling, she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean for things to get like this. I didn't want to do my homework, and then I didn't know how to stop lying. Billy licked her hand, as if he understood her sadness. His gentle, loving gesture made her heart ache even more. All this time, he had trusted her, and she had let him down. But what could Sophia do now? Would her parents forgive her, or would she still have to say goodbye to Billy? Her father knelt beside her, sighing. Sophia, we love Billy, too. But you have to understand, we want you to be responsible, to tell the truth, and to do what's right. Billy is innocent in all of this. If you really want him to stay, you'll have to prove to us that you're willing to change. Sophia nodded, her face wet with tears, as she clutched Billy tightly. I promise, Dad. I'll do my homework from now on, and I'll never lie about Billy again. Just, please, don't send him away. He's my best friend. I love him. Her parents exchanged a glance, not entirely convinced, but they could see that she was truly remorseful. After a moment, her mother said softly, All right, Sophia. We'll give you one last chance. But if you slip up, if you lie again or don't do your work, we'll have to make some hard choices. We don't want to, but we need to be sure you're learning from this. Sophia hugged her parents tightly, and then hugged Billy, who licked her face, his tail wagging as if he could feel her relief. But even as she held him, a tiny voice inside her wondered, would she be able to keep her promise? What do you think? Will Sophia be able to change for good? Or will she struggle with her old habits? And so, the story continues, with Sophia holding her beloved Billy close, determined to do what it takes to keep her best friend by her side. But life doesn't always make it easy to break old habits. In the days that followed, Sophia worked hard to keep the promise she'd made to her parents. She did her homework, kept her room tidy, and looked after Billy with care, as though trying to make up for every time she had blamed him. But deep down, the fear of losing her best friend still lingered, like a shadow following her wherever she went. Yet sometimes, life tests us in ways we don't expect. One crisp autumn afternoon, Sophia and Billy were playing at the park near their house, as they often did. The air was cool, and leaves painted the ground with warm shades of red and orange. Billy darted happily among the trees, and Sophia watched him with a smile, grateful for every moment together. But then, something happened. Billy spotted a squirrel and, in an instant, took off in pursuit. Sophia shouted his name, but Billy was so focused on the chase that he didn't hear her. Within seconds, he disappeared into the trees, farther and farther from her sight. Billy! She called, panic rising in her chest, running after him as fast as she could. But Billy was gone. Sophia searched frantically, calling his name over and over. She asked everyone she saw if they had seen a small, scruffy dog with bright eyes running through the park. But nobody had seen him. As the sun began to set, the once familiar park now felt enormous and frightening. As the chill of the evening crept in, Sophia felt a hollow emptiness settle inside her. She had never felt so alone. Billy had always been her companion, her confidant, and now he was lost, somewhere out there in the dark. Tears filled her eyes as she realized just how much he meant to her, and how all the excuses she'd given at school felt meaningless compared to the aching emptiness she felt now. Hours passed. Sophia's family, learning of Billy's disappearance, joined the search. Her parents held her tightly, trying to comfort her in her despair as they called out for Billy across the park. But he was nowhere to be found. Time seemed to slow, each minute bringing a new fear. Was he hurt? Could he find his way back home? In that moment, Sophia felt the weight of her actions. She remembered all the times she'd used Billy as an excuse, all the lies she'd told, and how he had trusted her completely, without question. And now, he was out there somewhere, alone, and she had no idea how to bring him back. Will Sophia find Billy before it's too late? Is he safe, or has fate prepared an even harder lesson for them? The story continues, with Sophia in a journey of regret and desperation as the darkness of night hides the whereabouts of her loyal friend. As the night deepened, Sophia felt the weight of her guilt and sadness pressing down on her. The park was nearly empty, with only the occasional rustling of leaves in the cold, quiet air. Sophia could barely see a few feet ahead, but she kept calling, her voice hoarse and her heart heavy. Just when she was beginning to feel completely defeated, she heard a faint rustling from a nearby bush. She stopped, barely breathing, as a small shape emerged from the shadows. There, standing with a slight limp and covered in dirt, was Billy. His eyes looked up at her with a mixture of exhaustion and joy, his tail giving a small, hopeful wag. "Billy!" Sophia cried out, tears streaming down her face as she ran to him. She dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around him, holding him as if she'd never let go. Billy, despite the ordeal he had been through, seemed only happy to be back with her. He licked her cheek gently, as if to say, "I forgive you, I'm here now." It was as if he understood everything without a single word spoken. For the first time, Sophia truly understood how much Billy meant to her, how he was more than just a pet, he was her loyal, irreplaceable friend. The walk home felt like a journey of redemption. Sophia held Billy tightly, feeling the warmth of his small body against her own, as if that warmth could somehow make up for everything that had happened. Her parents, who had been searching nearby, saw her approaching with Billy and rushed to them with relieved smiles and tears of their own. They hugged Sophia and Billy together, a family united again. Back home, Sophia gently washed Billy, giving him extra treats and cuddles, grateful that he was safe. And from that night on, Sophia changed. She no longer needed excuses, no longer blamed Billy, no longer tried to avoid responsibility. Instead, she took every opportunity to show her family, her teachers, and Billy that she had learned her lesson. She did her homework diligently and never again used her friend as a scapegoat. Every day after school, she played with Billy, taking him on long walks, giving him treats, and making sure he knew how deeply he was loved. In the end, Sophia learned some powerful lessons from her experience with Billy, lessons that would stay with her forever. Honesty is always the best choice. Sophia realized that telling the truth was worth far more than any excuse. Lies only build up, making situations worse and causing pain for everyone involved. Take responsibility for your actions. Blaming others may feel easy at first, but it only avoids the real issues. Taking ownership of her choices was a turning point for Sophia, helping her grow stronger and more dependable. Cherish those you love. Sophia realized how precious Billy was only when she almost lost him. She learned to appreciate and care for the ones she loved, knowing that true friends, whether human or animal, deserve our loyalty and respect. Trust is a sacred bond. Billy trusted Sophia completely, without judgment, and she saw how important it was to live up to that trust. Trust can be fragile, but it's also the foundation of a loving friendship. Every choice has consequences. Sophia understood that every little action, every choice she made, had a ripple effect. The things we do, even when we think they're small or harmless, can deeply impact our lives and the lives of those we care about. And so, Sophia and Billy's friendship grew even stronger, now rooted in honesty, loyalty, and love. They spent many more days playing, exploring, and simply being there for each other, with Sophia always keeping these lessons close to her heart. She had made mistakes, but through those mistakes, she had learned the true value of friendship, trust, and the joy of simply being together. And in that, both Sophia and Billy found a happiness that would stay with them forever. In the heart of an ancient, deep forest where few dared to tread, there lived a woman named Rosa. She was kind and wise, with a wealth of knowledge about the medicinal herbs and plants that grew among the trees and streams. With her careful, skillful hands, Rosa gathered leaves, roots, and flowers, transforming them into medicines, ointments, and teas that could ease pain, fevers, and other ailments. Every week, she would cross the forest to a nearby village, carrying her woven basket filled with these small miracles of nature. Upon arriving in town, she sold her remedies exclusively to the local doctor, the only one who knew about her skills and the origin of the medicines. Most people in the village never knew where the doctor's remedies came from, and they never questioned it. To them, the doctor performed miracles, and that was all that mattered. But Rosa, the lady of the forest, was known by nearly everyone in the village, and she didn't have the best reputation. Although she had never harmed anyone, many villagers believed she was a witch. Gossip would spread across the square whenever she appeared, and children, with wide-eyed stares, would pull faces and run away whenever they saw her. Rosa, however, did not mind. She knew that her work was valuable, and the forest was her true home. Her friends were not the village people, but the animals who lived among the trees and plants. Every night, before going to bed, she would sit on her porch and tell stories to the animals, who gathered from all parts of the forest to listen. The fox, the rabbits, and even the squirrels would perch on nearby branches to hear her enchanting tales. But one day, something changed in the village. The gossip and whispers grew louder, and soon a group of villagers gathered in the square, fueled by indignation. "Why do we let that old witch come into our village?" some shouted. "Who knows what kind of spells she carries in that basket?" And with that, the group marched to the mayor's house, demanding that he forbid Rosa from entering the town. The mayor, who feared the villagers' reaction and wanted to keep the peace, eventually agreed. He decreed that Rosa would no longer be allowed into the village. The news reached Rosa like a cold, sharp wind. When she read the mayor's notice, she felt her heart ache. She had spent so many years tending to plants and creating remedies to ease the suffering of others. Now, however, her efforts were not only misunderstood but unwelcome. Rosa didn't argue. Instead, she gathered her basket and decided to continue her quiet life in the forest, though her heart was heavy with the knowledge that she could no longer help those in need. Time passed, and gradually, the doctor's supply of remedies began to dwindle. At first, no one noticed. But after a few days, children started coming down with lingering fevers, mothers complained of constant aches, and fathers grumbled about back and joint pains. The demand for the doctor's help grew, but his answer was always the same: "I'm out of remedies. I don't have the means to cure everyone." That's when the villagers began to question things. Where had all those miraculous medicines that had always helped the village come from? Why did the doctor, who once could cure any ailment, now seem so powerless? And the people, growing more worried each day, began to remember Rosa. Could it be that she had been the one providing the remedies that so many had used without a second thought? Was the woman they had feared truly the source of their health and well-being? Now, with the village's health at risk, the townsfolk began to understand the gravity of the situation. The need for healing was greater than their fear, and the weight of their past decisions began to press on many hearts. What would they do now that Rosa was no longer allowed in town? Would the Lady of the Forest forgive them if they sought her help? The village found itself in a dilemma, with the question of Rosa's goodness still lingering. Could they earn back her trust and regain the wise herbalist's aid? And, most of all, were they ready to see Rosa for who she truly was? As the days passed, regret began to weigh more heavily on the villagers' hearts. Common symptoms of illness resurfaced and spread, and the doctor, pressured by his patients, finally decided to reveal the secret he had kept. The remedies were not his own. He explained to the mayor and the townspeople that all those miraculous cures came from the skilled hands of Senora Rosa, the forest witch, as they called her. Even he was unaware of the full complexity of her formulas, he only knew how to administer them. The news spread quickly. Many began to recall times when Rosa's remedies had saved lives and relieved pain. One mother whispered with a choked voice, "So she's the one who made the medicine when my daughter was so ill?" Another man, who had suffered a deep cut on his leg years ago, reflected aloud, "And that herb the doctor used on my wound? It healed so quickly, that was Senora Rosa too?" The doctor confirmed to everyone that, while he handled diagnoses and doses, without Rosa's herbs and potions, he could have done little. The villagers began to feel the weight of guilt, realizing they had driven away someone who only wished to help. Filled with remorse, the villagers and the mayor gathered to find a way to apologize. Not knowing where Rosa lived, someone suggested building a large bonfire at the edge of the forest to send up a smoke signal, indicating they wished to speak with her. And so they did. From afar, Rosa saw the smoke rising among the trees. Worried, she quickly gathered some of her best remedies and potions, thinking that some injury or serious illness had spread through the village. Not considering the ban, she ran through the forest to the village. When she arrived, she saw all the villagers gathered there, but to her surprise, there were no injuries or illnesses. Instead, they were all on their knees, offering her fruits, provisions, and even money as a token of their gratitude. The mayor approached her and, on behalf of the village, sincerely apologized for doubting her intentions. One by one, people expressed their thanks and remorse for treating her so poorly. With tears of emotion in her eyes, Rosa smiled and said she wanted none of those offerings. All she wished for was that they could return to normal so she could continue helping them as she always had. The entire village sighed in relief, and in a moment of pure joy, Senora Rosa was once again welcomed as an essential part of the community. Lessons from this story. Don't judge by appearances. Sometimes, what we don't understand can scare us, but judging without understanding can lead to mistakes that hurt those who mean only good. The importance of forgiveness. Rosa's kindness shows that forgiving and leaving the past behind are noble acts that allow for new beginnings. Recognize those who help us. Often, we forget to thank those who support us. This story reminds us of the importance of valuing and showing gratitude to those who dedicate themselves to our well-being. The strength of community and unity. When the village recognized Rosa's importance, everyone came together to correct the mistake. This spirit of community strengthens bonds and makes us more understanding. Moral: we should never disregard those who might help us, and forgiveness is always more powerful than prejudice. Kindness, even when misunderstood, is a transformative force, and those who truly love are always willing to forgive. Did you enjoy today's episode? If so, please give the video a like and leave a comment below. Tell me what you learned. Share it with your friends so they can join our adventure too. Also, check out this story here, it's amazing. Trust me,